Something massive just shifted in Washington. After decades of playing defense, after years of retreat and weakness, President Trump just unleashed Executive Order number 200. And with one signature, he erased 75 years of decline. The Department of Defense is dead. The Department of War has risen from the ashes. Pete Hegseth isn't Secretary of Defense anymore. He's Secretary of War, just like George Washington intended. This isn't just a name change. Military recruitment is surging. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs is promising peace through overwhelming strength. And get this, the UFC is getting ready to build an octagon on the White House lawn. What is happening here? Is America finally done apologizing? We'll keep on watching. Now, let me ask you something. If you've built up $100,000 or more in investments, do you really want all of it riding on the stock market? Think about it. Banks, billionaires, even entire countries are loading up on physical gold and silver. Why? Because when markets swing, real assets hold their value. That's why I want to tell you about Noble Gold Investments. They make it simple to own investment-grade gold and silver, the same kind the big players are buying, and you can actually hold it in your hand or put it safely in your retirement account. Visit nextnewsgold.com today to find out more. It's linked down below, or call that number on the screen, 877-646-5347. Tell Colin when you call that Gary said hello. Now, a lot to unpack in this report. Here's the moment, though. President Trump signed the executive order renaming the Department of Defense the Department of War. Now, we knew this was coming. There's been talk of this for weeks, and now it is official.
Secretary's Department of War. So we won the First World War. We won the Second World War. We won everything before that and in between, and then we decided to go woke and we changed the name to Department of Defense. So we're going Department of War, and I'd like to ask our Secretary of War to say a few words, Pete Hegseth. I think it's a much more appropriate name, especially in light of where the world is right now. We have the strongest military in the world. We have the greatest equipment in the world. We have the greatest manufacturers of equipment by far. There's nobody to even compete, and you see that with this and so many other things. The Patriots are the best. Every element of the military, we make the best by far. So, Pete, I'd like to ask you and maybe Dan Department of War. So we won the First World War.
Back-to-back World War champs. Here's the moment that they changed the sign on Pete Hegseth on his door, and he's officially changed his Twitter handle to Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. Check this out. Here's the moment. And now, Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War. Wow. Yeah, talk about making changes. President Trump isn't holding back. 2 hours ago, the White House put this together.
Born in Forest Lake, Minnesota, a proud Princeton graduate, an officer in the United States Army National Guard, a veteran of Iraq and Afghanistan, recipient of the Bronze Star Medal for Valor, a warrior, a leader, and a patriot. Please stand and honor your United States Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth.
White House already fast to put out the videos. Here's more from, this is the Department of War. They just put out this video.
You know, we won World War I, and we won World War II, not with the Department of Defense, but with a War Department.
We're focusing our military on its core mission, crushing America's adversaries.
We're in the business of war fighting.
Wow, look at that. Department of War.
You know, we won World War I.
Trump is back. This is from the White House. The Department of Defense. Donald J. Trump just signed an executive order restoring the name of the Department of War, America First, Peace Through Strength. This is the image that they put up. Yeah, the rest of the world is now officially on notice. And speaking of notice, Trump just gave orders to shoot down any Venezuelan planes if they dangerously approached U.S. warships. This comes after reports that multiple Venezuelan fighter jets buzzed a U.S. ship this week. The Department of War doesn't play. Nick Sortor posting that. Let's check this out.
I would say that
Venezuela flies jets over U.S. naval vessels again.
Well, I would say they're going to be in trouble. We'll let them know about that. We heard that happen, but it wasn't really over, not like they described. But I would say, General, if they do that, you have a choice of doing anything you want, okay? If they fly in a dangerous position, I would say that you can, you or your captains can make the decision as to what they want to do, all right?
Sure. Sir,
how close did they get?
We have one
President, you said they didn't go over.
Say it?
How close did they get? You said the planes did not.
Well, I don't want to talk about that, but if they do put us in a dangerous position, they'll be shut down. Thank you very much, everybody. Wow. So we're going to now cover the G20.
They're going to get shot down. President Trump ain't messing around. Here is the Secretary of War on the surge in Americans joining the military.
They're so full they
Pete, on recruitment.
I was down at Fort Benning, the newly properly renamed Fort Benning, yesterday, watching Army basic training, and they're so full they can't barely handle the throughput. It is truly historic across all the services, as you said. It's been a surge into the, I was going to say the Defense Department, but I would say the War Department, and that you might almost call it a vibe shift. An attitude shift, a feeling that the country is back, that service is back. And there were military families last year, Mr. President, that said, I don't know if I can recommend, I wrote a book on this. I don't know if I can recommend service to my son or daughter, given what's been done to our military. You heard it over and over and over again. And I hear from those same military families right now, sir, and they're saying, I recommend to my kids that they go into this department, this Pentagon, under this commander-in-chief, who they know you'll have their back, and they want to serve. So it is historic, and it's the biggest reflection of how motivated Americans are by your leadership, sir.
Holy cow, man. What a shift. We are all witnessing it right now. Here's more from the president. The message of bringing back the Department of War.
I think it sends a message of victory. I think it sends really a message of strength. We're very strong. We're much stronger than anyone would really understand. And again, having the great equipment, we have just so much better. You look at all of the, just any of it, submarines as an example. We're 20 years ahead of anyone else. Nobody even compares. And I let a lot of this happen in my first term. We totally rebuilt our military. And then, of course, you had that catastrophe in Afghanistan, where they gave up a lot of the equipment, but a relatively small amount, but a lot. It was a lot in Afghanistan. I think it was the most, General, I'd say it was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country, the way that happened, the way they went to the wrong airport. They should have gone to Bagram, not the local little airport with no security, with tight quarters, etc. You know what happened. I think it was the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, frankly. That was under the Biden administration. That was terrible. And we were going to be leaving, but we were leaving with strength and dignity. We were going to keep Bagram because Bagram's 1 hour away from where China makes its nuclear weapons. We're going to have that all to ourselves, a big, beautiful place built many years ago from money that today would be the equivalent of, many, many billions of dollars. You couldn't build it. The longest runways, the most powerful runways in terms of load capacity. And we just walked away from it. So stupid, and they were fools. The people were fools. No, we have the strongest military, and I think that indicates we have the strongest military. And
man, Afghanistan was a mess. I'll never forget the visuals of those Afghanis running down the runway, screaming as C-130s were getting ready to take off. We got a lot of clips here from the Oval Office, but I do want to get some reaction. Oh, yeah, here's President Trump posting this. Yeah. Trump posts AI sumo animation of Chris Christie and J.B. Pritzker. Yeah, President Trump is mocking both of these men. But I want to hear, we got this stuff about the UFC. I want to get to that, but I know we had a clip here of Glenn Beck. I want to get to that. I thought it was in here somewhere. Sometimes these clips don't. Here it is. Okay, so Glenn Beck talking about renaming the Department of Defense to the Department of War does not mean Trump is suddenly pro-war. Now, we know he's the president of peace. So why go on this offensive footing? Let's listen to see what Glenn Beck has to say.
Together and say, bring your gun. Do we need a Department of Defense or a Department of War? Just last night, I was against the Department of War. I think I'm actually for the Department of War. For the first 158 years of our republic, that's what it was. It was the Department of War. We didn't have this big Department of Defense. We didn't have a standing army. When we had to go to war, we just got everybody together and say, bring your guns in. And we had a Department of War that would open up and we could fight that war. Then we would send everybody home. We had that during the Revolutionary War, the War of 1812, the trenches of France, the beaches of Normandy, all of them. Well, Harry Truman came into office in 1947. Truman convinced everybody that we had to have a standing army because of now the bomb and everything else. So he established the military. Within 2 years, it was called the Department of Defense. Is this trying to soften us and say we're not the aggressor? We don't have a Department of War. We have a Department of Defense. We are only a defender. Or was it something else? The next president was Eisenhower, the general. He was the 5-star Allied commander of World War II. The last act he does is give a speech where he's like, I just want you to know we're in trouble because there's this military-industrial complex, and it's going to be really bad for America unless we all pay attention. And it's going to start convincing you that we should be at war when maybe we shouldn't, because it will be good for the military-industrial complex. We started spending money like there was no tomorrow, and we ended up here. So the president comes out and he says, I really, really think we need the Department of War. When you think of defense, what do you think? Cybersecurity, and we've got spy programs. But when you think of war, what do you think? My children are going to die. I think Donald Trump is trying to remind us that's the reality of our Defense Department. And we keep getting roped into all of these wars that are meaningless. Why? Because somebody's making money. So do we need a Department of Defense or a Department of War?
That is a pretty deep reality. UFC is coming to the White House. This is going to be a visual that we will all see very soon. 2026 is the date. July 4th, I believe, is going to be the scheduled event. Here's Dana White talking about it mid-August.
Next summer, there is talk of a July 4th fight. America's 250th birthday next summer.
Where at?
At the White House.
Okay.
It's a pretty big venue. Is that going to happen, Dana? What can you tell us?
It is definitely going to happen. I talked to him last night, him being the president, and I'm flying out there at the end of this month, and I'm going to sit down and walk him through, all the plans and the renderings, and we're going to start deciding what he wants and doesn't want. But yeah, it's definitely going to happen. Well, think about this. When you were just asking me, at the beginning how I felt about, where we are today. July 4th, 250th birthday of the United States of America, live on CBS from the White House.
Well,
so,
listen,
yeah.
I like the.
Okay, we got some information on that. The White House publishing a bunch of stuff about it today. We've got the details. Okay, they published Octagon Cage on the South Lawn, a full fight card, Lincoln Memorial weigh-ins. Oh my goodness, they're going to be doing weigh-ins at the Lincoln Memorial. Jumbo screens on the ellipse, possible Oval Office walkout. Oh my goodness. The UFC White House event is set for June of 2026, with the press conference and weigh-ins taking place on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. Can you believe that? The visuals of that are going to be absolutely insane. Dana White confirming White House event being set up by President Trump. I couldn't. I mean, I heard about it, but yeah. This also 4 hours ago, Complex Sports UFC White House card is reportedly now set for June 2026, featuring weigh-ins at the Lincoln Memorial. Fight night on the South Lawn. Fighters warming up inside the White House, giant screens outside, fireworks and light shows. The event was initially planned for July 4th, but logistical issues have pushed it to June, according to the Wall Street Journal. This published, let's see, The Brawl on the Mall is what they're calling it.
Memorial in motion for a full UFC card on the South Lawn in June, with men's and women's bouts, weigh-ins at the Lincoln Memorial, jumbo screens on the Ellipse, and fighters making their walkout straight from the Oval Office. Let's bring in Fox News Saturday in motion.
Oh, man. Got to make sure I'm there for that. And speaking of fighting, here is the Secretary of War. I got to get used to saying that. Pete Hegseth to the press after getting off the plane. Thank you for traveling with the War Department. All right, let's get here's more. Rapid Response 47, the U.S. Department of War. Let's keep going. We have so many clips from the Oval Office today. There's the signing. Okay. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Raisin Kane. Let's jump to that moment in the Oval.
To deliver. Thank you, Mr. President. It's a true honor for me today to represent the incredible men and women of America's joint force. Today and every day, the 2.8 million service men and women stand ready to fulfill our sacred duty to protect America at home and abroad. As the President said, America's military is the single most powerful fighting force in the world. The mission you and the Secretary have given us is clear and unambiguous to deliver peace through overwhelming strength. And I remind everyone that the U.S. military can reach any adversary at the time and place of our choosing. Service to this nation is an incredible gift, and we're grateful and honored every day to do so. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
I think we got some more clips here from the, we're going to set the tone. This is the War Department. America is back, says Secretary of War Pete Hegseth.
Mr. President, after winning a war for independence in 1789, George Washington established the War Department, and Henry Knox was his first Secretary of War. And this country won every major war after that, to include World War I and World War II. Total victory, Mr. President, as you said. Then 150 years after that, we changed the name after World War II from the Department of War to the Department of Defense in 1947. And as you pointed out, Mr. President, we haven't won a major war since, and that's not to disparage our warfighters, whether it's the Korean War, the Vietnam War, or our generation of Iraq and Afghanistan. That's to recognize that this name change is not just about renaming, it's about restoring. Words matter. It's restoring, as you've guided us to, Mr. President, restoring the warrior ethos, restoring victory and clarity as an end state, restoring intentionality to the use of force. So, at your direction, Mr. President, the War Department is going to fight decisively, not endless conflicts. It's going to fight to win, not to lose. We're going to go on offense, not just on defense. Maximum lethality, not tepid legality. Violent effect, not politically correct. We're going to raise up warriors, not just defenders. So this War Department, Mr. President, just like America, is back. Thank you for your leadership and your clarity. We're going to set the tone for this country. America first, peace through strength, brought to you by the War Department. We're back.
Oh, my goodness. I still can't believe this is happening. President Trump is not messing around anymore. Not messing around. Okay, here's President Trump discussing peace.
And our strength. Well, I think I've gotten peace because of the fact that we're strong. If we weren't strong, those 7 deals I told you about, the 7 wars, a majority of them wouldn't have happened. They happened for 2 reasons, trade and our strength. Those are the 2 reasons. And probably strength may be more important than trade. So if I was very proud of all those wars. Those were wars that could not be settled, and I settled all of them. And we'll get the other one settled also. That'll get settled. But without the strength, we wouldn't have settled any of them. Yeah, please. Well, I think
President Trump ending wars. Let's check. There's a clip from the Full Send podcast. Dana White talking about the UFC fight card at the White House.
We're still a year away.
Yeah.
So the whole UFC landscape will change over the next year. We'll see where we're at, and we will absolutely positively put on the baddest card of all time.
So this is not going to be like a normal card.
No,
all cards are great, but this is going to be
like
a super
an exceptional pay-per-view card.
Wow.
And we're still a year away.
Yeah.
Who will headline that fight? Will it be Pritzker and Christie? Okay, I think we got another. We may have another clip here. Here's when President Trump. This is back in July. President Trump talking about the White House fight.
we're going to have a UFC. I even think we're going to have a UFC fight. We're going to have. Does anybody watch UFC? The great day in the world. We're going to have a UFC fight. We're going to have a UFC fight. Think of this on the grounds of the White House. We have a lot of land there. We're going to build a little. We're not. Dana's going to do it. Dana's great, one of a kind. We're going to have a UFC fight, championship fight, full fight, like 20, 25,000 people.
Oh my
and we're going to do that as part of 250 also. We're going to have some incredible. I even think we're going to have a.
Think about the logistics for that. I mean, here's more Dana White talking about the fight. This is in July.
And just think of, obviously everybody wants to fight on that card. And that's a good thing because we're going to put on the best card we've ever done for that White House event.
Holy shit, Dana.
Imagine, just think about what I'm going to do for this fight. And then think about what Trump is going to do for this fight. You know what I mean? It's going to be it's a one-of-one experience. Like when we did the Sphere, it's the Sphere on steroids. I mean, it's going to be a one-of-one event. There'll be nothing like it ever again. Obviously
If you got value from this report, tap subscribe. My final thought is next. Now, why does this matter? Because symbols shape reality. When Trump renamed it the Gulf of America, when military bases shed woke names and reclaimed warrior heritage, he understood something that the left fears. Words do have power. The Department of Defense was born in 1947 as America retreated into Cold War containment. But the Department of War, that's what won our independence, crushed the Nazis, and made tyrants tremble. Pete Hegseth gets it. This isn't about glorifying conflict. It's about projecting strength so overwhelming that our enemies don't dare test us. When you call it defense, you're already playing their game. You're already backing up. When you call it war, you're sending a message. We're not here to manage decline. We are here to win. China sees it. Russia sees it. Iran sees it. Do you think America should restore the warrior ethos that made us great? Drop a yes or no in the comments below. And grab some American badass gear on your way out. Tap the link in the description, shop.nextnewsnetwork.com.